Right, thank you and good afternoon everybody and welcome to our Cabinet meeting. As usual, this meeting is broadcast live via the Council's website, will be archived so that you can view it afterwards. Members are reminded to switch their microphones on and before they speak, turn them off and finish speaking. Apologies of absence. We have apologies from Mr. Charles Pugsley. Item number 1, the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of November. I move the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of November and are taken as read and confirmed and signed. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item number 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of November 2025. I move the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of November 2025 as taken, read and confirmed and signed. Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 3 is urgent items. There are no urgent items. Item 4 is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare in respect of any of the items on the agenda? No? Thank you. Right, item 5, the provisional medium-term financial strategy. The first item today sets out the proposed medium-term financial strategy for consultation and scrutiny. A supplementary report was circulated last Wednesday and is published on the Council's website. Declan Keegan, Director of Corporate Resource, will present the report. Then I'll ask Mr. Harrison to speak as Cabinet lead member. Thank you. That is in place. Thank you, Declan.
Thank you, Chair. For several years, there have been calls from across local government for significant changes to the funding system. Two of the key requests, namely a multi-year settlement and updating the approach to calculating funding allocations, are expected to now be delivered. Unfortunately, we will not know the impact of these changes until the local government finance settlement is released. However, based on the information released to date, we know that the spending review provided better funding for local government than the real terms cut faced a year ago. But for areas such as Leicestershire, obtaining the government's funding increases assume a 5% council tax increase and growth in the council tax base. For the funding reforms, it's important to remember these are just a reallocation of existing funding and there is no assessment of the cost required to run services to a good standard. The calculation of our share of national funding does recognise the financial pressures growing counties such as Leicestershire face, alongside the associated demographic impact. However, government's decision to increase the importance of the ability to raise council tax in allocations and to make changes after the consultation that specifically benefit metropolitan areas will undo most of the recognised additional funding need. A perverse benefit of having low funding is that you do not have a lot to lose, so compared to some areas, the impact is not expected to be big. But the result is likely to be that other areas are pulled down to a low funding position rather than Leicestershire's position being improved. We're also expecting to receive an announcement this week on the treatment of the accumulated SEND deficits. We know that from 2028-29, responsibility for all future deficits will pass from councils to central government. However, we do not know the treatment of deficits accrued before this date. This has the potential to have a positive impact on the council's finances, although as no new funding has been announced, the provision has been maintained in the MTFS until there is clarity. The draft MTFS will be updated in advance of the Cabinet report in February, as more information becomes available. In terms of the report itself, government referendum rules set an effective cap on council tax increases of 5%, which is equivalent to £21.5 million per annum for the county council. The cap influences the decision-making process by preventing councils who do not raise sufficient tax from being able to catch up in future years. Council tax remains our most important source of income, and the draft budget uses a 3% increase assumption in 2026-27, which will generate £13 million per annum. This increase is lower than the current level of general inflation at 3%, and the April 2026 increase in the national living wage, which has been set at a 4.1% increase. As inflationary pressures would not be covered, this does not leave any funding for demographic and societal pressures, such as the ageing population and increasing support for children that have been high in recent years, as reflected in the service growth of almost £50 million for next year alone. To ensure that the MTFS is a credible plan, unavoidable cost pressures have been included as growth. By 2029-30, this represents an investment of £131 million, primarily to meet the forecast increase in demand for social care. The MTFS also includes a £63 million provision for pay and price inflation over the 4-year period. The capital programme remains significant, and £456 million is expected to be spent in the MTFS period. The largest proportion of the programme continues to be investment in Leicestershire's highways infrastructure, with expenditure on infrastructure to support housing growth and maintenance of the network both significant. Although we look to maximise government grants and developer contributions, £84 million of borrowing will be needed to fund the programme. Significant savings will be required every year of our 4-year MTFS, and £92 million has been identified to date. £45 million of this savings will impact our core services, and £48 million is to try and bring expenditure on special education needs support back in line with Department for Education grant. Even with this significant level of savings, there is a £23 million gap next year, which grows to £106 million by the 4th year of the MTFS. Whilst reserves could be used to balance the budget next year, this is not the preferred approach and would not be possible in future years without other changes to the MTFS. It must be stressed this is not a problem isolated to Leicestershire. If anything, to date we have managed better than most. An article published today in the Local Government Chronicle suggests that up to 74 councils are expected to apply for exceptional financial support. Basically means they can't balance their budget, which is more than double the number that were granted to support last year. To support identifying additional savings, Newton Impact have been commissioned to undertake an efficiency review. This report includes the key themes that Newton will use to explore savings opportunities and develop business cases where potential is seen. The review is progressing well and may generate some savings that can be incorporated into the MTFS for next year. For those that can, they will be fully assessed for the service implications and certainty of delivery. To deliver the MTFS, there are several key risks. We still await government funding allocations for the next 3 years. That is expected later this week, and several significant grants have yet to be confirmed. Future service demand can only ever be an estimate and is influenced by numerous internal and external factors. Inflation has fallen but will continue to contribute to the pressure on local finances. Numerous service and financial reforms are proposed for the current Parliament. Savings are not guaranteed until they have been delivered. As always, this is a very challenging MTFS. The need to use reserves next year is a serious concern, and resolving it will need to be a focus, as will reducing the growing gap in future years. As the report sets out from a good financial management viewpoint, the use of reserves to balance the budget is not a sustainable position. The council tax decision must be based on a balance between service needs and affordability for residents. However, if expenditure is forecast to exceed income over the course of the MTFS, it is likely that my recommendation as the council Section 51 officer will be to increase council tax to the referendum limit to avoid more pressures on the council's ability to provide its current range of services. Recommendations are as set out in the order taken.
Thank you, Declan. Could I call upon Mr. Fowler to speak and move the motion? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm happy to move this motion, and thanks to Declan and Simone and their officers and staff for doing all the hard work that goes into this, because obviously it's no easy task. We are in a difficult position, and to be completely frank, central government isn't making it easier for us. There's been a lot of delays and uncertainty with the communication and what our settlement's going to be, and obviously that delays how we can plan for the future. So, you know, it's difficult when we've got a £100 million gap over the MTFS, well, north of £100 million. It's an uncertain position to be in. But I do want to reassure the public that we do have full confidence in internal and external measures working in tandem to be able to get that gap down. We've commissioned Newton to come in. It's still early stages, but everything's working really well. We've got a great relationship with them, and they're working with officers and staff really nicely, and it's all integrating and going as planned. Some of the early plans, as I say, it's still we're not at an advanced stage yet, but we've spoken about agency staff, procurement, and other organisational refinements, and they are looking really promising. Another point I'd like to make when it comes to the efficiency review, which is obviously going to affect the MTFS and the budget, is that a guarantee of £5 million has been made by Newton, basically, that if that amount hasn't been reached, an agreed upon savings amount of up to £5 million, then the £1.4 million consultation fee they're happy to waive. So that highlights to me their confidence in the deliverability of their savings long term, but it also just covers our backs. And I think that's a good bit of reassurance for the public that they are serious and that they're a reputable company and they know what they're doing. Obviously, council tax is a big topic of conversation and it's a controversial one, but it's a decision that has to be made from a balanced perspective. We can only deal with the cards that we've been dealt, obviously. But, you know, we did set out our commitments to get the best value for money for our taxpayers. And we don't believe, as an administration, that means automatically going with the maximum amount just as a default. Of course, it's a decision that has to be made or not made based on a mixture of the information we have and our ambitions for the future. So that's what, you know, our illustrated intention of you know, in the draft, as I must say, of 2.99%, we think, you know, gets that balance right and covers everybody's interests in terms of the whole of the tax base of the county, not just those that receive our services. But we do have our consultation out. We're really keen to hear people's views. That starts tomorrow, so please get involved in that, and it ends on the 18th of January. And we want to hear what you have to say, you know, because ultimately, you know, we're accountable to the public. So, yeah, but I think that summarises it nicely, and I'm happy to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fowler. I will second the motion. This plan sets out an approach to managing unprecedented financial pressures driven by rising demands, inflation and ongoing funding uncertainty. Despite the significant savings already achieved, we face a projected gap of 106 million by the 29-30 period. Our priorities are clear: to safeguard essential services, deliver further efficiencies and ensure financial resilience. We will consult widely, scrutinise all options and work with partners to identify new savings and income opportunities. The efficiency review will underpin our transformation programme, supporting sustainable services delivery for Leicestershire residents. Difficult decisions lie ahead, but with a robust planning and focus on value, we are committed to meeting our statutory duties and securing a stable future for the communities. Is that agreed? Thank you. Right, we move on to item 6, investing in Leicestershire programme Rural Estate Strategy 2025 to 2035. Good afternoon and welcome, Lucy.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Okay, today I'm seeking Cabinet's approval to commence consultation on the Council's draft Rural Estate Strategy. This strategy forms a core part of the Investing in Leicestershire programme and sets out a vision for the rural estate over the next decade. The strategy has been developed following discussions and consultations with members at the programme board. Consultation, both internal and external, is a legal requirement and will help us strengthen the strategy by incorporating a diverse range of stakeholder views. The strategy sets out our vision and ambitions, which is to create a rural estate that supports thriving rural businesses, local communities and the Council's strategic objectives, whilst delivering ongoing financial benefits. We aim to retain a core estate, support new entrants into farming and maximise the estate's contribution to economic, social and environmental well-being. The strategy proposes restructuring the estate to maximise its potential, retaining holdings that deliver or could deliver market returns and disposing of unviable assets. A rolling 5-year financial strategy will ensure the estate remains self-financing and continues to generate market-level returns. We will supplement in-house expertise with specialist advice to navigate increasing regulation and support effective portfolio management. Consultation will run from the 5th of January to the 13th of February, targeting tenants, farming industry stakeholders, elected members and council departments. And feedback will inform the final strategy, which will return to Cabinet for approval in April 2026, following discussions with the Scrutiny Commission and the Investing in Leicestershire Programme Board in March. I recommend Cabinet approve the draft rural estate strategy for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Could I call upon Councillor Fowler, please, to speak and move the motion on the order paper?
Thank you again, Leader. I'm once again happy to move the motion on the order paper, and I'd like to thank Lucy for delivering that report. It's very comprehensive, and it's a part of my portfolio that I'm really proud of. The rural strategies, it's a part of our wider asset management programme within the county. I mean, we've got £96 million worth of equity across about 7,000 acres of land. So it's a huge asset base for us. It's a stable source of income for us, but also crucially, I think something that's difficult to read off a balance sheet is the value that it has in terms of maintaining Leicestershire's historic rich history rather of the farming industry, and I'm really proud of being able to keep that alive. In terms of numbers, I mean, a 12.3% return over 5 years compared with the wider market's 3.7% is really impressive, actually, considering it being considered quite a low growth investment as a general thing across the sector. It's pretty impressive to have that there, so I'm very happy with the direction it's going in. I think it's particularly important what we're trying to do in terms of this draft strategy, with opening the door for new farmers to get involved in the industry. And I think that's in a climate at the moment which is especially difficult for farmers. I mean, the amount of pressures they're facing, the hammer blow of the family farms inheritance tax, which the Chancellor's unfairly put on them, is something that's really difficult to take, and if we can help them in any way we can, I'm trying to open the door and lower the barriers to entry for young farmers and to keep our existing farmers happy, then I couldn't be more pleased for that. So I'm really happy with that direction, and I think that this thing is sustainable long term financially as well, and I think it strikes the right balance. So I'm really happy to move the motion, Leader.
Thank you very much. Could I call on Mr. Kevin Crook to second the motion, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm delighted to speak in strong support of the rural estate strategy as outlined in our Investing in Leicestershire programme. This comprehensive strategy builds on important initiatives such as the Nursery Farm Pilot Scheme, which nurtures new entrants into farming and bolsters the long-term viability of our rural economy. It's also encouraging to see the clear commitment to maintaining the estate's size, which safeguards our assets for future generations. Beyond these elements, the strategy adopts a forward-thinking approach that not only protects our precious rural heritage, but also drives economic growth, supports biodiversity, and enhances community access to green spaces. It aligns seamlessly with our broader goals of a thriving Leicestershire, addressing both immediate needs and long-term challenges in a balanced way. I want to take this opportunity to recognise the tremendous hard work and dedication of our officers in developing this plan. They've invested significant time and expertise to create a robust framework that reflects careful consideration and adaptability. In particular, it's commendable how they've listened attentively to the priorities and feedback from our new administration, incorporating these insights to make the strategy even more responsive and effective. I therefore second this motion and urge the Cabinet to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Thank you. Right, we move on to item 7, procurement of community life choices, day services and personal assistance. The next report seeks approval for the procurement of new community life choice framework community. Life choice includes day centre service and individual personal assistance. Indija Lahal, Assistant Director of Strategic Commissioning, and Lee Philibin, Lead Commissioner, are here to present the report. I will then ask Carl to speak as Cabinet Lead Member. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. So I'm going to provide a brief summary of the report. My colleague Leah Philbin's here today, who's a Lead Commissioner for the service, and we'll be able to field any questions or queries after the kind of brief summary. So this report focuses on the Directorate's Community Life Choices, so we'll call it CLC. It's been to scrutiny in September first for a bit of an overview, and then back to scrutiny last month for a more detailed conversation on the procurement. As you said, CLC is essentially day services or day opportunities, and it covers day centres, but also personal assistance that support people in the local community. It provides support to older people, people with disabilities, people with mental health, but the majority of provisions for adults with disabilities. Paragraphs 22 to 30 of the report provide a bit of background to the current arrangements and some key points. At present, we have contracts which run until the end of August next year, and we've currently got 25 providers on our framework, around 670 people using our CLC service via the framework, and it spends about £10 million a year. So it's not an insignificant amount of spend. Paragraph 27 details the current way that we deliver services and service levels that we have. We've got 6 bandings, and paragraph 41 gives an overview of the costs of services in place. So we've taken quite an extensive review of the service over the past 12 months, and we engaged some independent advice as well on how we deliver the services. And there's a few changes that will be putting in place as part of the new framework. So in terms of the proposed framework, and these are highlighted in paragraphs 31 onwards, but in summary, we will be having a formal framework in place, which will be a 5-year framework, and we're in discussion with our legal and procurement colleagues around this. There's some changes to uplifts and how we do annual changes to prices, and we're going to try and make that more consistent with our home care market. We do, however, reserve the right to look at our uplift on a yearly basis, so it's not an automatic entitlement to an uplift. Under the arrangement and consistent with the home care tender, which we took back in August, I think, at Cabinet. So currently we've got fixed prices, but in line with our home care arrangements, we're going for a floor and ceiling price. So it stays consistent with previous arrangements that we've discussed at Cabinet, and gives us that opportunity to be more efficient and more effective with resources. One of the other big areas is going to be around how we allocate packages. So a lot will depend on our call-off process moving forward. Price will be a key consideration, but also choice and people's needs. That's quite a big change for us moving forward, but it will be key in how we administer this work. And there will be a big focus on progression for us. So where we've got people entering services and we feel they can move through services, part of this framework will enable us to look at a progression lot as we have the framework. It links into our adult learning service, so we're doing quite a bit of work with our adult learning service, see how they can potentially deliver that. And we've got a new Connect to Work programme, again, which would hopefully kind of benefit this group of clients. A couple of the quick changes or areas to focus on. So we'll be looking to enhance provision for older people and also people with mental health needs, as well as supporting those hard to reach communities and some of those areas that are a bit more rural and out in the sticks. So that's part of our engagement work so far. We have done quite a lot of engagement over the past 18 months, and that's summarised in the appendix at the end of the report. And that was one of the requests from scrutiny last month. And subject to Cabinet approval today, we'll aim to publish the tender in February next year, with new contracts in August of next year. So Cabinet are asked to approve the commencement of the procurement process. Leave it there, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seconding, but it sounds very worthwhile, and I wish you well. Thank you. Could I call on Mr. Fowler, please, to second? Carl. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Carl. Sorry, Carl.
Thank you, Leader. The CLC provides a key service for adults with disabilities, mental health and older people in the county, which supports people to remain as independent as possible for as long as possible. People who use the services value the support, and many people are able to access local communities with the support of a personal assistant through this arrangement and to be part of their community. The service also offers and supports family carers with a break for carers for caring, which is invaluable to many in supporting them to continue with care for their loved ones. One of the areas that will be worked on as the framework starts is the development of progression models for people with disabilities. This is a key area of work for the Directorate and will support the preparing for adulthood programme, as well as potentially being something that our adult learning services can support as well. The department has developed a similar approach to pricing as the home care tender, and will be aiming to maximise the resources available whilst ensuring that people receive the right service to maximise their independence. I welcome the Directorate's proposal approach to the CLC framework and recommend to Cabinet for approve the commencement of the procurement. Therefore, I'm happy to move this motion. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Right, Mr. Fowler, please.
Thanks, Leader. Thank you as well to Mr. Abbott for forwarding this motion. I think it's a really important one, and thanks to the officers as well for putting in their hard work, because I think it's a really prudent thing that we're getting pushed through. As Councillor Abbott has described, the service offers vital provision for people with disabilities and older people in Leicestershire. Many of the providers currently are on the framework. On the framework are local voluntary-based organisations with positive values and community-based work programmes. This is an area that we as a council value and want to support. I note that within the report, the officers will be aiming to ensure that services are available for all communities, in particular those with complex needs and those in more rural, hard-to-reach communities, which is positive and addresses one of the points made by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee last month. Some of the work that the local area coordinators undertake can support people using this service, and also providers in accessing local communities, groups or activities. And I will ask officers to make the links formally between public health and adults and communities as a part of this programme. In conclusion, I second the motion and support the approach outlined today to approve the commencement of the procurement for the CLC service.
Thank you. Is that agreed? Thank you. Right, we move on now to item 8, with strategic spatial transport planning. The agenda item 8 concerns proposal for a strategic spatial and transport planning work. These arise from issues with local plans and concerns expressed by local communities, councillors and MPs about the traffic impact on new developments in the county. We have comments from Phil King, the local member for Gartree, Rosita Page, local member for Lutterworth, Dr. Henry Winand on behalf of Stop the New Town. These are attached to the order paper. Phil King has also asked to speak on this item, and he has joined us via Teams. And welcome to you, Mr. King. You are welcome to our meeting. You have 3 minutes to say a few words. So I hand over to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Thanks very much for your time. Good afternoon, Cabinet. I apologise for the length of my submission, but unfortunately there is a lot of information and history to all of this. So what I want to say is I do welcome the openness of this report and its acknowledgement that transport impacts of growth are becoming increasingly difficult to manage. I've been pretty consistent that the current Harbour's local plan at the moment does put homes and jobs in the wrong places, with growth running ahead of infrastructure. So this report does help to explain why communities are so concerned, particularly in the A6 South corridor. but equally, Leader, it is important that we do learn from past experiences, as some of us would have been involved, including myself, in developing previous strategies such as the strategic growth plan that's gone nowhere, the expressway that got binned off, even previously a proposed railway station at Kibworth. Development still went ahead. We got lots of housing and business growth, but we didn't get any improvements really to roads and local services. So that's why I say I welcome the report's honesty in stating there are no simple fixes, and that for the A6 South corridor, in particularly the Kibworth choke point, a road around the villages is the only realistic long-term option. And so I do welcome this more strategic approach, but I mean, fundamentally, what it comes down to, Leader, and you've just been talking about money, is the money. Where is the money going to come from to pay for whatever the solutions are that we come up with? And fundamentally, that's the big problem. So I do welcome this. And you know, and the community, I'm sure they'll welcome it as well. And you know, anyway, hopefully you'll all agree to release this funding to get this bit of work started, and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. King. Thank you. Right, I move on now to Jana Walker, Assistant Director Development Growth in the Environment and Transport Department, is here to present the report. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. So as you've outlined, this report brings together I guess the challenges that me and my team have been facing in dealing with growth coming forward, and that's both growth that is set out in local plans and also what we call speculative development, where growth is coming forward on an unplanned basis. And that bringing that together as well with the concerns that we are seeing from members of local communities, community groups, yourselves as county councillors, and members of Parliament regarding traffic impacts from new developments. And what we're trying to do here is outline a strategic approach to dealing with that over a period of time, including sort of moving towards a preparation of spatial development strategies, which is a new level of strategic planning on a wider geographic basis than district by district. And also, as Mr. King mentioned, some transport scheme work so that we can offer up solutions to the challenges that we're seeing. The report highlights the need for collaborative working with the district councils as planning authorities to influence their local plans and secure infrastructure funding, as Mr. King mentioned. And I also want to emphasise, I perhaps didn't bring it out in the report because we're working in that framework, but the strategic development strategies we're talking about, they are by nature collaborative and done with partners. So for us, certainly include colleagues at the City Council and Rutland as well, who are experienced planners. So to achieve sort of moving us towards better transport outcomes in the future and making sure we've got a plan for dealing with the cumulative impacts of development, you'll be aware as well as your local communities will, that it's not just one local plan or one development that we are trying to mitigate the impact of, but the overall impact of those. And so the report has a series of recommendations, which, you know, I'll summarise here to try and move towards that approach. So the Cabinet report is an attempt to be open with communities about the challenges that we face and set those out. And we've asked you to note sort of the strategic transport and planning constraints along with the local ones. Really want to emphasise that we do support a plan-led approach, and we recognise the need for homes and jobs and for those to be affordable and accessible to people. But we do also recognise that some of the growth coming forward isn't brought forward in that planned way, and we want to be really pragmatic and realistic about dealing with that too. We want to, where the recommendations set out that work towards progressing a spatial development strategy, working with partners, developing transport schemes to mitigate growth based on the evidence that we're seeing. And we do recognise, and we are trying to be realistic, that some of these will take time to progress, and they do address impacts across more than one area. And so you know, there will be gaps between sort of recognising these things and bringing the schemes forward, similar to what we've seen in Melton previously. But if we don't start, we won't ever get to that point of delivering the infrastructure. And I think that's really important to put that out there today. We want to be really collaborative, sharing the evidence. We have got scheme development outcomes and the work that we're doing with planning authorities, developers, to influence planning outcomes as far as possible. And I think importantly, given some of the responses we've had to the report so far, and I will pick up on those just towards the end of my introduction to the report, that communities get to see that work as well and get to kind of engage with that as part of the work that we're doing. And I think it's important to emphasise we've not excluded communities from that work. We're getting permission from you today to start that, and so they can be part of planning for those solutions. And also, I think really importantly as well, we want to explore ways we can streamline work or work differently to get better outcomes. And I think a number of you again will be familiar with parts of the county where, from a highways and transport network point of view, that national highways play a critical role, so the M1, the A5 as an example, and making sure that we're working with them as well, so that when development is proposed, we are making the most of that external funding to deliver the right infrastructure as part of delivery. So the report does set out the challenging situation within the county council, and similar to what we heard on the MTFS report earlier, this isn't a Leicestershire problem, that there is a challenging planning backdrop nationally, and we've set out within the report some of the key issues that are kind of affecting how we're working and how our partners are working as well. Government's obviously got a significant priority of delivering housing growth, and there is pressure on local plan making bodies to bring forward those plans very quickly. There's been changes to that national policy and also the methodology for calculating housing need in different areas, which you know, has sort of presented a change in evidence base. Certainly the level of investment we've seen in Leicestershire's network, transport network, hasn't kept pace, I don't think, you know, from the with the demands that we're seeing on the network. And we realise that the scale of that transport investment, you know, if we did everything that we could identify to make highways and transport network perform well, that cost is beyond what is available at the moment. So it's really important to prioritise, to bring together funding sources to deliver the most high impact and the most priority schemes we can in the short, medium and long term. I think as well, officers here, and I know yourselves as well, recognise the difficulty that planning on a district by district basis has. We've got overlapping impacts, smaller areas, development, limited amount of funding that can come from those. And so in the longer term, we do definitely welcome the introduction of a strategic planning approach to support that. But I think it's really important in the shorter term, we recognise that what we're dealing with here isn't a choice between local plan growth and no growth coming forward. Growth is coming forward anyway, and we're seeing that in communities in Leicestershire. And so part of this report is being pragmatic about that and making sure we've got answers and solutions to the impacts that arise from that growth in the meantime. And I think as well, I just wanted to reassure Cabinet as well, this report isn't about seeking to support plans in their current form or as they were last time we brought them through Cabinet. It's about being a proactive partner in bringing those plans to a place where we can support them. And we'll be bringing back reports to Cabinet on particular local plan development as we go through as well. And another reason why I bring this report forward is because I think we are learning lessons. We've been through a round of local plans previously, and later on the agenda we've got an update on Chalmers local plan and community infrastructure levy. And I think it's fair to say at the moment, you know, development is happening in Charnwood where that development is not contributing towards the strategic transport infrastructure that's needed for the future at the moment. We want to work to avoid that by being proactive now while we're working with the next round of local plans. So apologies, Chair, I know there's quite a lot to get through in the report. I think I just wanted to highlight that there are some actions that we've set out to tackle in this report, in paragraphs 52 to 59 sets out those strategic bigger picture work that we could do, and also with national highways. And then the report in paragraph 60 to 67 also sets out some scheme development and evidence work that we want to do to underpin the type of approach that we've been talking about. I think it is fair to say, you know, the report does kind of conclude that there is no real quick wins now. If there are some, we will put those through, but we are talking about some bigger picture, some longer term solutions, and we want to be open and honest about that moving forward. So I mentioned that community concern is a big part of the work that we're doing, and just wanted to acknowledge Mr. King's comments and thank him for reviewing the report and providing those. The kind of local aspects of those comments we'll pick up when we sort of respond to Harbour's local plan next time. And I do think that you know, more generally, the strategic approach of having the policies in place, having the positions on records with you at Cabinet and as part of local plan processes is going to help us make sure we at least maximise the funding that does come in from the development industry and we don't miss those opportunities. And also, we can't seek funding from government or from other sources if we don't have something to seek funding towards. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, and I can see, you know, from a local community perspective, you absolutely want the infrastructure first and the growth after. But I think what we've seen in reality is we have to make a bit of a compromise on that. Similarly, Councillor Page has submitted comments, and thank her for those comments. And again, we'll take those on board as we progress the work with colleagues at the Planning Authority. And Chair, if it's okay, if you don't mind me taking the time, I've reviewed the submission from the Stop the New Town group, and there were some specific asks of Cabinet in there, which I am just able to comment briefly on now, if that's helpful.
Yes, fine.
Yeah, and again, thank you to the group for reviewing the report, and I'm assuming they'll want to be part of some of the ongoing work goes forward. So the specific asks were that we don't sort of rely on the strategic development strategy work to kind of live with plans in the short term beyond, you know, what's reasonable. And I think, again, that's not the intention of this report. We want to see local plans have funding mechanisms, policies to address the challenges they've got now, and my team and myself will be working towards that. And I know, having spoken to my colleagues at the planning authorities in preparation for this, that is something that you know, we're looking forward to doing together. Again, not assume that large sites are deliverable and automatically included within a strategic development strategy. We're looking for that strategy to be, you know, evidence supported. Make sure that we know what we're planning to deliver, not just the housing but the infrastructure as well. So I can take that on board. Not rely on cancelled or obsolete infrastructure assumptions. I think particularly, I guess if there was an elephant in the room, it would be that the strategic growth plan and some of the work we've looked at before is based on the idea of something called the A46 Expressway. So that is a route round the south of the city to provide sort of national and local connections. I agree, whilst the concept of a sort of national level link, the A46 Expressway, can't be relied upon in terms of national funding at the moment, what we are seeing is a demand for orbital movements on a local level, and I think we do need to find a way to address that through the work. So we'll be looking to do that. But we don't lose sight of existing strategic development sites and corridor work, and they're prioritised so they can be delivered. There's a number of strategic sites around the county that we are working to do that. And we have got a track record of doing that as well, with things like strategic sites in Melton, the A511 corridor work we're doing, and also improvements at Junction 23 for strategic sites in Loughborough as well. And again, I think there's a call from the group that transparency is maintained, and we'll be bringing reports to you on all of this relevant sort of strategic transport stuff, planning, I shouldn't say stuff, should I? Transport issues and consultation responses, stuff as a broad remit, and also work that we're doing on particular developments as well where appropriate. So hopefully that does kind of show that we're reading and understanding the responses that we get, and I think there'd be more dialogue going forward. So apologies, Chair, I'll stop there now, but happy to answer any questions, and the recommendations are as per the order paper.
Thank you very much. I will move the motion on the order paper. I'd like to propose this report to Cabinet for the approval because it allows the County Council to be as proactive as possible in addressing the very real challenges faced by all parties involved in planning to meet the future home and job needs of Leicestershire's growing population. We need to take a positive action to ensure that local plans coming ahead adequately deal with issues such as highways, transport, And also the development coming forward now does not prejudice any of our ability to bring forward the right infrastructure in the future. I'm also pleased to encourage officers to work with partners such as other councils, the development industry, and importantly, our communities to get the best outcome possible in these difficult circumstances and progress more strategic planning opportunities. I'd like to call on Mr. Tilbury to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jana. Yeah, I will second this report on the basis that it helps move forward and address the concerns we have raised through previous consultation responses. We face significant challenges in seeking to meet the needs of a growing population, and so I understand and sympathise with the legitimate concerns of communities about the impact of growth and development on the highways and transport network. I thank Mr. King and Ms. Page and also Mr. Wynnard for their comments, and I thank Mr. King for his time and detailing the many issues we face along the A6 South Corridor and indeed throughout Leicestershire. As Mr. King said, there's no easy fixes. I do consider the approach set out in the report to be a pragmatic response to a difficult situation. The report does not advocate for the Highways Authority to accept the current round of plans as they are, but to be proactive in reaching solutions to the concerns over evidence, delivery and funding. And I'll be keeping in touch with officers over the progress of local plans and impacts of development coming forward ahead of those plans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Before we take the vote, I'm going to allow Mr. Fowler just to say a few brief words on this, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree completely with my colleagues about the pressures of the local transport network, and I'd like to thank Jana and her team for getting this sorted out with the SDS, because I think it is something that needs to happen. It is a difficult balance to hold with the context of the local plan, because naturally, we want to avoid these speculative developments, and we want to be able to get Section 106 funding through, strategic sites. But also, we want to be able to hold it to account as well. And it's kind of catch-22 almost. So it is a really tough position to be in. I'd like to thank Councillor King and Councillor Page for their comments, and I completely agree with them, to be honest with you. I think it's a very difficult situation, especially in South Leicestershire. I should know, as a fellow Harborough district based county councillor and a resident nearby of the area, I know how congested it can be around the A6. It's awful, frankly, and I think the long-term solution probably is the only long-term solution that's viable is an A6 bypass, because I think that's where the bottleneck is, and I think that's the only way of going about it. But of course, the funding implications are not simple by any means, and I think realistically LGR is probably our best route to go through that, as long as the government go with our proposal, which is the correct proposal. It gives us the basis to be able to control the planning and the highways, but also it opens the door up for the wider prize, which is mayoral authority funding, because that's how you support strategic networks like this, and that is the kind of funding that we need to be able to support these projects. So yeah, that's all I've got to say. But thank you.
Thank you very much for your kind intervention as ward councillor. Thank you. Now, is that agreed? Thank you. Right, we move on to item 9. Response to the Charnwood Borough Council Community Infrastructure Levy Draft Charging Schedule Consultation. The last report on today's agenda concerns the proposed response to Charnwood Borough Council's consultation on its Community Infrastructure Levy Draft Charging Schedule. The levy would help fund transport infrastructure needed to support new developments in Charnwood. Jana Walker, the Assistant Development and Growth Environment and Transport Department, is here present, and I will ask Adam to speak as the Cabinet Lead Member for Transport. That was a heck of a big introduction on how many lines of accreditation to the title. Wonderful. Anyway, over to you, Jana. Thank you.
Yes, my colleagues might be worried I'll be taking over from them at that rate, but no, I'll stick to these ones today. Thank you, Chair. So, you know, as you really clearly said, so this report provides an overview of the County Council's proposed response to Charnwood Borough Council's consultation on the what we call the Community Infrastructure Levy. So we normally refer to it as CIL. They've got a draft charging schedule out for consultation at the moment. So a CIL is a financial mechanism that allows local planning authorities to levy charges on new development based on size, and there's a lot of factors that are taken into account, the rate at which you charge CIL, but really aims to raise funds for essential infrastructure, and in this case, particularly strategic transport projects. And those are projects that we've identified would support the growth in the borough. Now, the Charnwood Local Plan's been a regular item at Cabinet for a long time, and really sort of embodies some of the challenges that we've talked about in the previous report. But one of those things, and why CIL is critical in this situation, is because the distribution strategy within that plan is smaller developments over a wide area. And so as part of our learning through that local plan and learning in Leicestershire, because this will be the first CIL that is adopted in Leicestershire, is that the only way to pool funding in that way on a legal basis is to introduce the CIL, the Charging Infrastructure Levy. So as an authority, we're supportive of that process. It represents progress towards development contributing to the strategic transport needs that we've talked about. And the report itself, if subject to approval today, would allow the Director of Environment Transport to submit those formal comments to Charnwood by the deadline of the 19th of December. So the report highlights the importance of adopting the CIL to address the transport needs that we've identified in the area, and there's a summary of the history to that within the report. We do note that there is a sort of a residual funding gap, so between what we can realistically expect to get from the CIL and the transport we need, but broadly, again, we've worked through that with yourselves and with cabinets previously, that the best opportunity to fund infrastructure now is to move forward and implement the CIL to support the local plan, and that's what myself and my team will be doing. There is a need as well to recognise that the amount of funding we seek through CIL is also done in consideration of other 106 requirements, so things like education provision is also funded through developer contributions, so you need to set that CIL rate at a suitable level to fund other requirements as well. And the team here have worked with the team at Charnwood. We've also had independent expert advice on that as well to provide reassurance. And so we're happy to support the proposed CIL rates and the methodology, recognising that balance of the key infrastructure. There are a couple of points of detail that we didn't get sight of through this consultation that we've picked up in the report and we'll submit in our consultation response. And if there are any significant changes or information that emerges from that process, we will of course update you. But the overall, the progress of CIL represents a positive step in the discussions that ourselves as the County Council and Charnwood Borough Council as a planning authority have been having, and will continue to work collaboratively through the rest of the process. So our consultation response will go in and provided, dependent on what else comes out of the consultation response, the idea is to progress that CIL to an examination before its adoption in 2026. So the recommendations are as per the order paper, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to call upon Mr. Tilbury to speak and move the motion on the order paper.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Jana, for the report. Whilst we recognise the challenges associated with the Charnwood local plan, particularly in respect of highways and transport, I support the recommendations in the report, as this is the best way to ensure that development contributes to the necessary infrastructure and services. The progression of CIL in Leicestershire for strategic highways is an important step in ensuring we can plan for the future highways and transport needs in Leicestershire arising from the cumulative impact of growth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. For reasons Mr. Tilbury has set out, I'm happy to second the report. I'm keen to be seen how much investment in Charnwood area for the necessary infrastructure improvements as possible. This is the best way to achieve this. The adoption of CIL in Charnwood, although much later than we would ideally have liked, recognise the principles the County Council as a highway authority have set out in the local plan consultation. Response include there must be appropriate funding mechanism to support the delivery of a key infrastructure that communities need to thrive on. Can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. Right, item 10, referred from overview and scrutiny. There are no items referred from the overview and scrutiny committee. Any urgent items? There are no urgent items. This brings the meeting to an end. I'd like to thank you all for your attendance and wish you well on your onward journey and declare the meeting closed. Thank you.